We did it. Mr. Mark Hertel, welcome to the channel. Grats and Gets. Gentlemen, and the one solo lady who likes Warhammer out there. There's more than one, but the one who's watching this. Actually, I was looking at my metrics earlier, and I realized I have 3 female subscribers, which is pretty freaking sick, dude. This is called diversity.
That's pretty good.
Thank you.
That's
Guys,
pretty good, man.
we have a freaking treat for you today. We have the legend, the champion of LVO, which is of this year's LVO. There was 1,096 players, the largest Warhammer tournament that has ever been completed. I know the London Grand Tournament tried to take them, but I don't think they quite managed to edge out the LVO this year. We have the one and only, the Emperor's Angel, the Emperor's personal angel. We have Mark Fuck It We Ball Hertel. Welcome to the channel, Mark. Congratulations on your victory. It was super, super sick. I loved watching you. There's a lot of the streams of your games that are still available on War Games Live and Tabletop Live, so if you guys want to go check those out. I don't have the links down below, but when I finish this and post it again, maybe I'll get the links down so you can go check out some of those games. Bro, well freaking done. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling good, John. Thank you very much for having me on here. I'm happy to spread the good news of Deathwatch and of Marines in general.
You, my friend,
Not that many people need to know about that.
you are the Marine, and you're even rocking the blue Smurfs right now. I have mad respect for it. Uh, just so you guys
Yeah,
know what's
my little Marines poofball hat. Yeah.
love it, and just so you guys know what's on the menu for tonight. So Mark and I were kind of talking off camera for a moment. If you guys want to hear a full in-depth detail about his journey through LVO, there's been a couple other podcasts that have been out there. What we're going to talk a little bit about that, but what we're really going to talk about is we're going to focus on the actual play style, the mindset, the things you need to know in order to maybe play in a different way that you might not realize works. One of the things that Mark personifies is a aggressive play style, and an aggressive play style is not necessarily what people think it is. It doesn't mean that you're just like reckless. It just means that you understand the calculated risk, and you use calculated risk to dictate the pace of battle. So Mark's going to be giving us tons and tons of insight on how to do these things. But I'm just going to kind of give him the floor for a minute. Like, bro, pitch your team. I know you got an awesome team. Like, let us know who you are, and then we'll jump into the meat and potatoes of it.
You can call me Mark Gator Hertel. That's my nickname, Gator. It's from Will Ferrell. It's from the movie The Other Guys. Will Ferrell's pimp name.
Amazing movie.
But I was christened it. I didn't come up with it myself, but I have accepted it and I've become one with it.
Beautiful, man. So, guys, if you don't know, Mark, this guy plays in one of the most competitive metas in the actual world. It is you're just Virginia, that general area. It's just full of crazy good players, and he is a terror of the meta up there. Team Battle Brothers. It says Aaron the Wanderer. That's right, Team Battle Brothers. Dude, I'm actually really looking forward to it because I'm going to be moving to South Carolina at the end of this year, maybe very beginning of next year. So I'm going to be commuting a little bit. Hopefully, I catch up with you guys over at Cherokee and all those places. So I'm looking to.
Well, absolutely. We have a team tournament and like just general tournament we hold in North Carolina at my buddy Juice's place. It's a great time there. It's not too far away from me. If you're in South Carolina, it'll be a great place for you to come up there too. I'm happy to see you again there.
Oh, hell yeah, man. We will hug it out and we'll have another battle for the ages. For those of you who don't know, I played Mark at the World Champions of Warhammer in round 2, and it was a freaking nail biter. It was like as close as it could get. And this is actually where I kind of want to start the talk tonight about, because Mark recovered a game that he really that if he was another person would not have been able to recover the game, because he plays actually fairly similarly to me in the way that I teach on this channel. He put enough pressure on me, and he understood the fact that he was losing, so there was no point in playing reserved. So he went full send and then just took the freaking win like a champion. So effectively what happens is we're playing a linchpin game, and I took his home field in like round 2. And Mark goes, well, I could try to fight for that, but then I'm moving backwards and you grab the entire board. Or I could say, screw it, and just go forward and take your stuff. And it was the correct decision. It was a risky decision, and the math doesn't necessarily say it always works out, but the reality is he was in a no-win scenario there. So he flipped the table and said, screw no-win scenarios. How can I win? And he took the win like a freaking champion. And when I realized that the way that he did it there, it was just beautifully and masterfully done, and he ended up winning by a point. It was a massively fun game. It was one of my favorite games at the entire championships, and I've had a blast with him. And he did that multiple times at LVO as I watched on stream, and it was just really, really cool. So Mark, could you just start us off with your general philosophy of Warhammer? Like, when you look at a table, we don't have to get into like the army or anything right now. Just give us your general thought process of what Warhammer is as a strategy tactical game, and like just talk us through your brain here.
Absolutely. The way I see Warhammer, the easiest way to win a game is if your opponent cannot play the game. And your opponent cannot play the game if he has no models left on the table. That is my general philosophy.
Dude, that's
And
sick.
basically, yeah. Now, obviously, you can't guarantee that you table your opponent every game, but you can do ways to basically minimize the ways they can play the game. So, like you said, I like to play aggressively, but basically, what I like to do is I like to build my list in more of a I'm going to hold primary more than I'm going to score secondaries.
Mhm.
Like, I don't build my list with like I'm going to have this unit to be an objective holder. This unit's going to be like this, and this unit's going to be this, and this is my special scoring unit that I'm going to teleport around the board to score all the game. I'd like to focus more on just being able to deny my opponent primary and be able to score primary for myself.
Beautiful. I love it. So what are the armies that you actually play?
I play Marines, pretty much all variants, but mainly Ultramarines and Deathwatch.
Mhm.
And I play Admech when they're good.
Oh, okay. Do you when you run your that's actually I didn't expect you to say back with the way that you play. Are you like a Rustalker heavy guy who just like goes for like how do you run Admech in
Um,
that style of gameplay? That's
Oh
just
man, oh man.
just as an aside here.
I used to play Admech in early ninth and seventh, eighth, and ninth edition. Admech was basically my main army.
Mm.
In the mid and early ninth before they got the Codex. When they got the Codex, it was just so busted. It didn't feel like Admech. It felt just like this is busted. It's good, but this is not Admech. This is some weird anomalation. But the way I played Admech is it was so funny. I had in mid ninth edition, I had this really good list. It was a bunch of boats and hoes. It was three
Suppose.
disintegrators. It was like yeah, it literally was. It was three disintegrators. There was a couple transports with electric priests. I would scout up the electric priests. I would it has so many special rules. I could do all these different things. I'd scout the electric priest, charge you turn one, and I kill something and get a 3-up invincible of those electric priests. It was glorious. It was so much fun. I was actually beating Drukari when their Codex came out with that list. Like I was like one of the few lists that was actually able to handle Drukari,
Sick.
and I actually beat at I almost took the Dallas Open when it happened. This was during like COVID around then. I actually beat a bunch of Art of War guys, and I lost in the finals to I think it was John Lennon in the finals. But I beat like Nick Lombardi there, who's playing Drukari. I beat a bunch of other guys. It was fun.
That's awesome, dude. So everyone in the chat, so we're gonna be going through this to kind of like give you guys a rundown of like just how to freaking play at a higher level with very different strategies. Um, we will be doing the Q&A at the end. We'll probably have a good solid 15, maybe 20 minutes, depending on how much time Mark has. Hell, I'll stay here all
I
night.
got all the time in the world, my friend.
Well, shit, get ready for a 4-hour session. Things might get
Maybe
weird.
not 4
There
hours.
might be a nipple that pops out. Who knows? Um,
Who knows?
if you have a burning question, dude, super chats are much greatly appreciated. We'll get to those sooner. I'll try to scour it and make sure that we try to get most of the big questions, even if you're not super chatting in, because I love you, and even if you can't monetarily support, we still want to make sure that you get the information that you need. But if you have a burning question that you need answered right away, man, pop that super chat in, and I'll read it in a sultry voice for Mark to answer for you. All right, man.
I'm looking forward to that.
Oh, dude, it's gonna get weird. Trust me. All right, so here's the deal. When you're building a competitive army list, what is the very first thing that you consider?
Um, I consider if it has good matchups into most things.
Okay.
Basically, like I don't like to build a list that I feel is going to have like really hard matchups. I mean, maybe I'll have like hard matchups like knights
Mm-hmm.
or something that I'm not likely to run into very often. But like oftentimes, I like to build a list that's going to be a good all comers. Like in my opinion, what's a good all comers. I like something that's not going to be just like all right, cool. If I run into like I want to be able to play the field.
Got it. Fair play. We do have our first super chat, and this is coming from Totaface, otherwise known as my mod, and I love him. And he wants to know, why is his father's love conditional? Mark, could you give us an answer?
Your father's love is conditional because you touch yourself at night.
Ah, that's how it is. All right. So, and this makes sense, right? So you build an army list that is more or less an all comers. You tend to not take like the big stat check lists that are like, or the big skew lists that require really.
Well,
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I've
Elaborate
been
on that a
playing
little bit.
triple land raiders for a long time too, so I wouldn't say I don't take stat
You
checklists.
did
It's
run the
just
double land raider. That's true.
I ran double land raider at Worlds, but I've been running triple land raiders in my local meta and terrorizing my local meta with triple land raiders. That's been fun. That was before they did some changes. I forget why I took double land raiders to Worlds instead of 3. They did something weird that changed up the points a little bit.
Okay.
I think I forget exactly why. I thought I'd do better with triple land raiders than double land raiders, or double land raiders and triple land raiders at Worlds. Got finessed a little bit with Gilliman.
Respect that. Now the next question, and you will get a sultry voice for this, and then we'll after this one we'll reserve it to Warhammer questions, unless you just want to drop a ludicrous amount of money, and then I'll get weird with it. From Mass Brofect, how do I make my wife's dump her boyfriend, Mark?
You see, you just need to be a manly man. You need to stop playing Warhammer. You need to hit the gym and then hit him, and you need to tell him that, hey, this is my wife. You can hit the road jack, and then you need to get a new wife because obviously she's been used too often.
Dude, that was a very respectful answer, and I actually really enjoyed it. Like that was pretty solid. By the way, Mass Brofect doesn't have that problem. Just so everyone
I don't
knows,
think he did,
but
but I just thought he
that was
was
actually a
asking.
very real answer. If that ever actually is a problem for you guys, that is a wife problem. Nice, I love it. All right, now let's get into real Warhammer. I did enjoy that though. All right, so you take the all comers. This is making sure that you understand the meta. One of the big problems that a lot of people run into is they run into like local metas. So like what we'll play into here in Norway will not be the same thing as what is played in Virginia, for example. When you go to these massive tournaments like LVO, what do you do to analyze like exactly what is the all comer list versus like what you expect to see in your local meta? Because a lot of people will just see.
Terrain.
Oh, okay, all right. So,
You need to know what the terrain is.
okay,
That is the absolute most important thing for any tournament you go to. You need to know, is it player placed, is it GW terrain,
mm,
what the layouts are going to be. Terrain decides much more of what list will be viable than any meta.
I freaking love that. Do you have any like just quick things to say? Like say the difference between like WTC versus GW terrain. Like what would that tell you? Just
WTC terrain is also played with WTC mission, well, FAQs, which are vastly different than GW, just like strict by the book. GW, you can't charge through walls. You can basically be on an inch off the wall and you can block off those
mhm.
walls, so you can make it a lot harder to be charged. You can do a lot more gamey things like that, but those are good. I like those. I like the GW rules. I think the WTC they're adding their own house rules to it. I don't like that as much. But the main important thing you need to realize is that you need to know what the house rules of the tournament you're playing, because maybe they have like different terrain, they don't have the exact GW layouts. But the main important thing is that like GW layouts, usually you have to remember this. A lot of the objectives in the middle are going to be out in the open. You're not going to be able to hide carefully and hold them. You have to be either have the lone op or a big unit that can survive the punch back to hold those objectives if you stand any chance of holding them.
All right, so that's perfect. And that's actually one of the things we talk about on the channel a lot. We talk about you build your tournament list for the tournament you're going to. It's not just this is the list I'm running currently. Things have to change based off of the metrics of the tournament that you're attending. And so I think that's just an absolutely brilliant answer. Now, are there any specific like units or like combinations that you're thinking about that are just really underutilized in the competitive scene, whether that's going to be like armies or just like, hey, this particular thing that we're not seeing popping up? Is there anything that you're looking at right now?
I think Sternguard vets are really good. I think they should be shown more often because I think especially like the Ultramarine and stuff like that, I think they have a good place. I love Centurion Devastators, even in the 3-mans in Gladius
Mm.
with Grav and missiles, because you give them the extra AP ignores cover. All of a sudden, those Gravs are 3 damage and they're doing a lot of damage. And Centurions, they oftentimes don't even need the Oath buff because they can shoot at things that are on objectives and then they get full rerolls.
That's actually a really good point. That's something that actually really took me by surprise when I played you at Worlds, because I underestimated your list, because I saw the grav guns on the Centurion squad, and then in one turn you split fired 3 ways and killed 3 tanks with that squad, and I was like, oh, okay, so maybe I shouldn't underestimate that Centurion squad. So that's cool. So that's definitely potentially a really underutilized unit. I do enjoy that. Now, when you're designing your list, do you design them to actually like excel and be super effective at any particular phase in the game? Like, do you look at the game and say, "Oh, movement, shooting, melee, like this is where I need to excel," or are you really just trying to dominate in every phase?
I usually try and have a balanced list. I like to have like a good like I like in my triple ender list is really good in shooting, of course,
Mhm.
but I like to have like good units in melee too. Like I've got Calgar with the Chump Company heroes, and I've got like I'll have like a couple like assault intercessors, jump assault intercessors. Like so, not everything's like great in melee, but you have enough melee where you can drag yourself out.
Okay, cool, man. I like it. All right, so I'm gonna kind of like shift here a little bit. I'm gonna start talking about like your in-game strategy and like how do we adapt to crazy things that like start happening. So you get to the table, you're sitting down, you're going to start playing this match. What's the first thing that you need to know about your opponent's army? So, on any given table, let's say we're playing on, it doesn't matter, take and hold, hidden supplies, whatever. What is the thing that
Yeah.
you need to know about your opponent's army first? And what's the first thing that you're trying to break down when you're looking at your opponent?
Everything. I mean, honestly, you need to know your opponent's rules. Basically, like I am fortunate. I've been playing the game for a long time. I know basically I'm able to like memorize a lot of the stat lines,
Mm-hmm.
and then just like all right, if you're MEQ, basically like Marine equivalent. So basically, Marines usually T4, hit on threes, and then they'll have like 3 up armor save. But basically, like the you can't just not know your opponent's army. I will ask my opponent like their older profiles for the most part. I'll ask them. Unfortunately, I know most of the armies and I know most of the profiles by now. But like, you really need to know their stratagems. You need to know what their detachment does. You need to know their ranges on their guns, and you can like generalize like, hey, what's your longest range? That can like shoot me, or what's your most powerful gun, stuff like that. But ultimately, there is no just like you need to know everything because if you don't know what your opponent can do, you are doomed to be defeated by that.
I actually think that's a really good answer. It's kind of an answer that people don't want to hear, but I think that is just the correct answer. The reality is that we play a pretty complicated game, and it requires a lot of knowledge. I always say to like my coaching clients and stuff, whenever they're getting ready to fight an army for the very first time, like I've never played Grey Knights before. It's like you're probably gonna lose. It doesn't matter how well you approach the game, you're probably gonna lose. You just don't know have the knowledge of how they're gonna respond. Don't worry about it. Let's look at this as a learning experience in this game. Um,
But
we
I will say this,
Yeah,
do not be afraid to ask questions.
I love
You
it.
can always ask your opponent, like, always repeat if you forget, ask them again. Like, "Hey, what does this do? Can you tell me, hey, what's your range on this again? What's your AP on this again?" Always do not be afraid to ask the questions. I'm constantly, if I have any uncertainty about, like, what this does again, I will ask my opponent. Because, like, you need to know that information,
Yeah.
and it's an open game, all this knowledge is open in the open, there's no shame in asking again.
Dude, I love that. That was freaking brilliant. The entire game should be about communication, right? All right, so we got a $10 super chat from Sarn Zero. Sarn, thank you so much for the super chat. I really appreciate the support, man. So, as a Custodes player, I'd love to hear your thoughts on how to deal with Custodes to better plan my own counterplay to win with them. For example, what kind of mistakes do you really look for when you are going into the golden bananas?
Um, Giving me line of sight. If you ever give me line of sight, you're dead.
Right.
Um, Especially with my death watch list, and it's hard to hide from me because I will be able to teleport and get angles. But the main thing about custodes is they're I only fear them if they make their invul saves for the most part.
Yeah.
Like I'm able to, if I'm able to get around them, I'm able to. I mean, they are a good army. They are nasty, but for the most part, especially with my death watch list. I feel I'm able. I haven't played against that. I haven't played against Grey Knight our custodians in a while, but I feel that basically like with my, especially with my death watch list, I'm able to position myself in such a way that I'll be able to get ankles on you before you're able to get ankles on me, and I'll be able to get around the board a lot easier than you will.
Yeah, and just to pile on the back of that for you, Sarn. So most people know I'm a major Custodes player, and I'm actually really excited to be jumping back into them now with the bike changes. The thing that most people forget about Custodes is that it's not a live and die by the 4-up army. Because like if you play it as if it's a live and die by the 4-up army, you're going to lose. So, like Mark said, the very first things that came out of his mouth was, bro, don't let me draw line of sight. Don't get shot. If you're
Yeah.
trying to live and die by 4-ups, you're going to die by 4-ups. So just don't do that. Custodians have two decisions they need to make in the game. The first decision is, where am I going to stage? And the second decision is, when do I commit? You make those two decisions. That's all you got to do, and then I think you're going to have a lot of success with the Custodes. Awesome answer there, Mark. All right, so when you're approaching a game and you feel like you're at a big disadvantage going into the matchup, like I don't know, like what's a matchup that you absolutely hate as Deathwatch?
Death Guard.
Death Guard. Yeah, okay, that seems
I've
fair.
played it twice, and now it's a bad matchup.
That seems fair. So let's say that you're going into the Death Guard. You hate the matchup. What goes through your brain? It's like, okay, I'm at a disadvantage here, here, here. How do I compensate? What are you looking for to try to like close the gap of the disadvantage that you might have?
Well, I'm trying to see. So basically, what you're trying to do is you try to maximize your advantages and minimize your disadvantages. The thing about Death Guard is they get close to you, and then they will probably be reducing your armor save, so they will really be able to kill you. So the main thing about that matchup is you've got to kill the most important dangerous stuff that can kill you, and then hopefully weather the storm of everything else. They are still slow, so they do have to get to you. They're probably going to like rapid ingress terminators if they got them, so you have to watch out for that. But the main thing is that like you've got to try and kill the most dangerous stuff of theirs that's going to kill you from range. At least that's what I have to do with my Death Guard, with my Death Watch.
Yeah, and I actually really enjoyed how you approached your match against. I think it was against Dan Hooner.
Don Houston.
Houston, right? He was awesome. I really enjoyed the match that I was watching. And one of the really, really cool things that was put on display in that game was there was a moment at the end of the game where you're just like, okay, cool. I have a decision to make. Do I try to go back for Mortarion, or do I try to go for this little dude to guarantee the assassinate? And you're trying to figure out exactly where do you get your points and how do you deny him his points. And the decision you came to, which I really enjoyed, was I have to hope Mortarion fails the charge.
Yeah.
And a lot of people would be too afraid to make that decision. Would they be like, cool, I need to try to nuke him now because next turn he will charge me, and that's just going to end me. So instead, you just went like, you know what? I'm going to get the points. I understand that if he makes the charge, it's probably over for me. But the best opportunity I have for taking the win is I'm just going to hope you fail the charge. And that's a very uncomfortable decision for most people to make. And it's one of the skills that I think that you as a player have over a lot of the other really good players out there. Like there's a lot of amazing players that we watch on stream, but I didn't see anyone else display that particular skill. Just understanding the board position, where you are, and sometimes you just have to hope this thing doesn't occur, and you identify when that is and when it's time to hope and when it's time to act. And so I just love pointing that out. So if you guys have an opportunity to go check that out, I think that match was on Tabletop Live, and you can go check out their live stream.
Yes, it was. Now, it wasn't that I was hoping it wasn't making the charge. I was hoping when he killed a Rhino, because the Rhino was going to get me defense stronghold and extra points on primary.
Yep.
It was great that he failed the charge, because if he made the charge after killing the Rhino, the game was over and I would have lost that game. I was really just hoping he would have killed a Rhino with Mortarion.
Gotcha. Okay.
Because like, I was expecting him to make the charge.
Fair
But
play.
it was very fortunate, God willing, that he failed that charge.
Now there's something that you tend to do, which is, hey, listen, I'm gonna advance my Watchmaster and my Vanguard and my veterans out, and I'm gonna go for this 10-inch charge into a tyrant, and I'm gonna make it. So I love it. So what's your like general philosophy on when you're balancing the aggression versus playing defensively? Because you certainly don't always do that in your competitive games. A lot of people really struggle on this concept of balancing the aggression with playing defensively. So what are your thoughts on that, and how do you approach the balance?
Well, the main thing about that unit right there is they had to move up to get me area denial, because I knew it was behind on points, and I knew it was going to be behind on points for a while, and that unit was just there to go up, screen a little bit, take a charge, hopefully kill something on the way out. And they were very fortunate they made the charge into the. I knew I was on a little bit on the back foot. I had to do a little bit of a big play to get up further. I was hoping they would actually roll further on their advance. They rolled a 2, and then I re-rolled that into a 3. So I was hoping to be up a little bit closer to get a better charge on his Gene Stealers. and I just happened to make that charge into the hive chart. That was amazing. It was if you watched it on stream, it was glorious because I know you already said this, but I have a 10 charge. We gotta make this charge. Fuck it, we ball. Roll dice, 10.
And guys, the reason why that was so darn funny, especially for me, was when I was playing him at the World Championships, he did the exact same thing, dude. It was with a different army, but like Gulliman had to make like an 11-inch charge, and he was trying to decide, does he go for it or does he not go for it? And the words out of his mouth was "fuck it, we ball." He threw the dice and he made it, and like it was just a devastating charge. And as soon as I saw it on stream, I was like clapping my hands with glee. It was freaking hilarious. I had an absolute blast watching that. That was really cool. So all right, so basically what you're saying, and let me make sure I understand what you have here is you knew you were on the back foot, you knew you had to score area denial no matter what, and by positioning that unit there, you understood you also had this secondary thing that you could accomplish that with them.
Yes, because even if they fail a charge, they're still going to be charged with Gene Stealers and killed on the next turn,
Yep.
but they're also going to be air denial. But if they're not there, I'm not getting air denial. They're not doing anything else. They're going to be charged by the Gene Stealers the next turn anyways, because I can't really get away from them.
Right.
So if they're going to die regardless, they just need to do something outside my opponent's zone.
So a lot of people would be like, "Oh, how do I conserve this resource?" But in your brain, you're already understanding the resource can't be conserved. So there's no point in trying to conserve them when I actually could just do something big with them and hope they go out with a bang. I
Yes.
love it, dude. I freaking love it. And guys, if you didn't really catch that, make sure you replay that last like just 20 seconds there where Mark explained that, because that's just absolute gold. That's how you turn a loss into something really, really big. We actually just got another super chat from Aaron the Wanderer. I am curious the best way to play a unit of scouts throughout the game. Also, don't worry about the room at BEA. My gift to you for always helping me.
Well, thank you, Aaron. So scouts, I will be honest, I don't like. I do not like scouts. Sam, I am. I do not like them on my board. I do not like them in my tray.
Hot
I
take
do not
alert.
bring them when I play. But the best way to play them, personally, the way I would play them if I had them in my list, is very aggressively. I would play them probably. They'd probably scout up. I would probably play them to try, depending on the list I'm playing against. I'd probably run 2 units of scouts. I would try to just screen out my opponent from even being able to leave their opponent's zone turn 1.
Yeah, that's
That's
actually
usually what I would do
yeah, and that's something
if
that
I played them.
it works great. Like with my Blood Angels army, I'll do the exact thing. Like, and a lot of times you actually don't even want to charge with that, because when you charge, say like vehicles, then they can take desperate breakout or desperate escape test to like fall back over you. But if you just stand in front of them, they can't do that. They literally can't move. And it's gonna be pretty
Yeah,
freaking hilarious. Just be like, all right, I lose 140 points of my army, but you lose your first turn.
yeah. I've just moved up right in front of you. Now you can't move out of your opponent's zone.
Brutal.
Now, if you're playing them if you're playing them just like the 1 unit way, or just like the way most people play them, probably the optimal way of playing them is keeping them alive, trying to use them for secondaries. Trying to just be able to teleport them around the board. The way I would play them if I was running 1 unit of scouts is I would probably just put them up, scout them up a little bit, be able to threaten your primary objective, your side objective, your side objective. If you're just running 1 unit of scouts, just to try to get that objective early. But then you just like can put something else on that objective later, and then teleport the scouts around later.
Right on.
But the way I would optimally play scouts if I ran them would be 2 units of scouts trying to screen out my opponent from being able to play the game.
All right, so what's like the most common mistake that you're seeing other players make during the games, and like how would you recommend people avoid that mistake?
Most common mistake. Um,
And let's say for good
most
players.
common
Let's say for like
for good
good
players.
players,
All
yeah.
right, all right. I gotcha. Um, that is a good question. Um, Let me see. I'm just thinking what the
Yeah,
most common mistake
let
would
me
be.
pontificate while you're thinking a little bit, because I'm
Yeah.
gonna maybe explain why I'm asking the question, okay? So you give it a think for a second. So guys, if you watch say the LVO streams, what you're gonna notice is there are some unbelievably good players on stream, and they all screwed up, every single one of them, and they screwed up multiple times. And I know from my clients, I know from everyone in my Discord. By the way, if you guys are not in the Discord, you should sign up. You can become a YouTube member or join from using my coffee, which the link is down below, where you can join the members only Discord for Happy Corrupt Wargaming. But if you were watching the streams, these guys screwed up just like every other player that I ever see play at the local club, at the local RTTs, at the GTs. It doesn't matter. Everyone screws up. Jack Harpster made major positioning mistakes. That doesn't mean Jack Harpster is not an amazing player. He's an incredible player, right? But he made major positioning mistakes just like everyone else there. And I feel like this is a really important thing, especially when you might be playing against a popular player or someone that you know is really good. Don't get intimidated. Everyone bleeds. Everyone makes mistakes. If they make a mistake, freaking punish them for it. Because I definitely see that this will happen at least in Norway, our GTs and stuff. You will see people who are maybe not historically very good go up against some of the better players, and they'll see it when better players make a mistake, but they won't capitalize on it because they get too afraid thinking that, oh, this is a trap. If you see the mistake, capitalize on it. Did you
I have the answer now.
Nice.
It's either wasting too many units screening out things, or not using enough things to screen things out. It's gotta be screening, because like what some people will do is they'll put too many units out to be like, I'm gonna screen you out everywhere, or they'll not use enough units to screen out like the bare minimum. That happened. I'm basically so that basically happened in like my game against the last game, the game against Jack. Those were circumstances of like using too many units to screen and then not screening properly. And then against Jack, he basically like threw a couple units out into the middle, like his last destroyers and his lieutenant with a combi weapon. Those were basically just free kills for me. And then it's just like they weren't really screening out too much. And I was still able to do what I needed to do against them. But like and then the last game, he had his scouts were basically just like a slingshot for my army, because I was able to charge him with my Washmaster squad. Yeah, the Washmaster squad died, but they put a hurting on the Calgar squad, and then they forced him to deal with that squad. And then in my fifth game, this is on Joe's Patreon stream, he didn't screen out properly, so I was able to drop in the unit Terminators, kill his combi lieutenant who was doing an action, and then I was able to charge onto his objective that he made with Rug.
Got it. So the screening units were the units that he really actually needed to be protected. He needed to be screening the screening units in that scenario.
Not necessarily that. Not
Okay.
necessarily that. What he did is in the fifth game, he could have moved out some of his jump assault intercessors like an inch or two to prevent me from dropping onto terrain to allow me because I was able to drop onto terrain and get free shooting onto his combi lieutenant within 12 inches,
Okay.
and then also charge his scout unit. That was just made the objective.
Got it. Okay. I'm picking up what you're putting down. All right, cool. So there's some really good concepts of like how we actually play. Do me a favor now, because this is the big question I have for you. How do you recognize board state and recognize when you need to take the fuck it we ball approach?
So basically, it depends if I'm going first or second, and it depends on what my opponent's moving up. If they're moving, and it depends on like what they can move up to. I will oftentimes, you saw in my Don Husen game that I was very aggressive turn one when I went second.
Yeah.
Because I could not get screened out. I knew I could not get screened out. I knew he was moving up across the board. I had to kill what I could because I knew that even though I couldn't bring the full force of my army down, if he screened me out with a couple units, I could not bring them down anyways because like I'd be able to kill a couple things and then like, all right, cool, I'm dead back.
So basically, you recognize that if you're gonna go, you have to do it now.
Yes.
Is that just a thing that people get with experience? Like, how do people develop the
I think
board state awareness?
I think a lot of it will come with experience. A lot of this game comes with experience and practice. You have to, and like this is something I say all the time. You have to play people better than yourself to get experience, and you have to not be afraid of losing because you learn a lot more in a game that you lose than a game that you win. And don't be afraid to ask your opponent after the game, like, "Hey, what could I have done better? How could I have improved this? Maybe because maybe they saw something that you did, and they're like, man, if he did some boneheaded move, if he didn't do that." It would have been a lot better for me. And maybe they'll just have like different opinions of just like what you could have done better. Maybe it wasn't right, maybe it was, but you never know. Because that's what I do all the time too. Because I'll play with my friends and then I'll ask them like, hey, maybe I could have done something better, Maybe did you see anything I did wrong? Maybe because like there's rarely a game you play perfectly.
Sure.
There's always ways you can improve, and almost every game you lose is not due to dice. Almost every game.
Almost.
Almost 99.9% of the time is either something you could have done in list construction, maybe it's a bad matchup or something like that, but it's almost always something in list construction, how you play the game, or things like that. Almost always there's something you could have done better.
Awesome. I love that, dude. All right, so chat, I have one more section of questions I want to get through. It's just like three more questions, and then we're going to move into open Q&A time. So start thinking about them. I'll scroll backwards to try to find some of the questions you had, but if you guys organize them for me, that would be super, super appreciated and, pretty awesome. All right, Mark. So this last segment I want to talk about, it's going to be like mental game and tournament prep, okay? Because one of the things that people just don't understand, especially if they've never been to a really like a major, they don't get what 10 games of Warhammer means. Like they really just don't understand what that means. So when you go to big competitive events like the LVO, they're grueling. How are you preparing yourself mentally and physically to just be able to handle these multiple high stake games over the course of the weekend?
I don't really prepare myself mentally or physically. I mean, I pray to God. It's like, hey God, if you want me to win, I'll win. If you want me to lose, I'll lose. Because like sometimes you'll see like there are games you should win, but I say no.
Hmm.
I'm a very fatalistic guy. I'm like, hey, if I'm meant to win, I'm meant to win. If I'm meant to lose, I'm meant to lose. You can't go into the game and be like, yeah, I'm so good, I'm gonna win regardless. Because like sometimes your opponent's dice will spike and you will lose that game. Even if you deserve to win, you will lose that game. You can't be like, even the best players in the world, because it's a dice game, will lose to people they shouldn't lose to. So you can't be like, I'm so good, I'm so mighty. You have to be humble. Because like if you're not humble, if you're not willing to lose games, you're not willing to risk it to win the games.
So when you went to LVO, did you have the intention to win?
No. I didn't think I was. I mean, I wanted to win. I
Sure.
wanted to do my absolute best, but I thought I was going to go 5-1. I thought I was going to lose in the shadow round. I did not think I was going to win this because it's actually really funny. I went to a GT, a local GT, 32 players, and I actually went 2-2 at that GT the weekend before LVO.
So that was. I hope you guys listened to what this man just said. Just so everyone heard what he just said. There's nothing shameful about going 2-2 at a GT, right? Because the guy who just won the largest Warhammer tournament in history, who did not have an easy road, by the way, the weekend before he went 2-2 at a local GT because you can't always plan on winning. So okay, I think that's really really great, and that's actually something I can learn from as well because I know for certain I put a lot of pressure on myself when I go to tournaments. I have a blast when I play, but I go with the idea like I'm here to perform. And
Yes.
sometimes that can be a little bit too much on me, and I could even just get like I could actually even lose a little bit of the fun of the game when I'm so focused on like I have to perform right now, and that can just put me in a bad mental state. So I love you saying that, and I think that's like a really good lesson just for me personally, and for a ton of other people. Like some games you just won't win.
Yeah. Now, I won't say don't perform your best because like you
Of
always want to
course,
perform your best
certainly.
because that's all you can do. Like you always want to perform your best because you are your own best advocate.
Hmm.
So it's like when you play the game, like one of the reasons I do so well is I've got a big support group of my friends, my team battle brothers and guys like that, who are always willing to play against me most of the time, and they're willing to like hang around with me because I play the game to a high level. I hold myself to a high standard. Like I want to play the game to like I want to play the game as best as I can, and I want to be a good guy about it. I don't want to be rude. I don't want to be obnoxious. I want to be a good guy, and I want to win with dignity. And I want to lose with dignity. Sometimes I don't do that very well, but I want to play the game with honor and integrity. And because you are your own advocate, and your reputation, no matter win or lose, your reputation will follow you.
I love it. I love it. We got a super chat from Mass Brofetch, who's been a member for 4 months. By the way, Mass Brofetch is like the greatest supporter of the channel. Mad respect, love for you, appreciate you so much, my guy. How long or slash often were you playing 40k before you felt that the game just like clicked for you? And he wants both of us to answer. But Mark, please.
Um, That's kind of funny because, like, oftentimes it's like in the middle of an edition where it'll just kind of click. I've always been a competitive gamer. I've always been a competitive war gamer. Because I started in seventh edition, and as soon as the War Conflict came out, and that was the most competitive list for AdMech, I jumped on that in a millisecond. But like the game's really clicked for me in 10th edition. I've really been able to do some of my best stuff here. But I've always been pretty good at the game, just put it a little bit lightly.
And I love that. And for me, honestly, it clicked for me when I decided that I wanted to be good at Warhammer 40,000. Which that might sound like an asshole answer. It's not. I promise you. Let me elaborate just a little bit. Like, I got my army. I was playing. I try to win my games, but I didn't do anything to get good at Warhammer 40k other than just show up and play games with people. Once I made the decision, oh, I want to be like those guys on the WTC team who are like they're going on their weekend like cabin trip and they're grinding out 8 games over the course of the weekend. Once I decided I wanted to be with like on their level, that's when it started to click for me. So I would get on TTS, for example, and I would load deployment maps. I would be like, hey, where can I deploy safely on this terrain? And I did that, and I was like, oh, that's how this game works. That's when it started to click for me. When I actually just made the conscious decision that I'm going to treat 40k like I treated boxing or how I treated soccer when I played soccer in high school, where it's like, yeah, I love the game. The game's the most fun. Practice is not as fun as the game, but I still enjoyed practice, and I still had to go to practice if I wanted to show up for the game. That's when it clicked for me personally.
I will agree with you when you say that because well, a lot of people, the biggest hurdle to getting better at the game is the willingness to get better at the game.
Yeah.
You have to set aside like your preconceived notions of just like I'm good at the game, I don't need to learn. You can always learn from someone else. You can always learn from people better than yourself, and you can always learn from people even just at your level. But you always need to be willing to learn and willing to change. You can't just be like you can't just be taking the worst army in the game and be like, yeah, I'm gonna win tournaments with this. You might not, because sometimes, especially in earlier editions, the game was not as balanced as before. As this edition is very balanced. But like before, it's just like you take a certain army, you will not win. You will not win. Like against certain Death Stars and stuff like that, you had 0% chance of winning because the way the game was balanced. But like if you're willing to change, switch armies, and like improve yourself, that's the biggest thing you need to do.
Yep. All right. So what's your strategy for like staying focused and avoiding mistakes during the game? So on this channel all the time we talk about you have a game plan and you execute the game plan. So when you're playing and oh, it's so easy to make mistakes and you have pressure because a bad dice roll happened. How do you like focus yourself and how do you really like avoid the stupid mistakes like accidentally leaving the model touching the train or oh shit my spear was sticking out in this direction now I lose like how do you like avoid that stuff?
I talk to my opponents a lot of my intent throughout the
Yeah.
game. Basically, you have to like say it and do it as you're doing that. So basically, like you can't. So basically, you set it off early in the game where it's just like, hey, my intent is like not to be on the terrain, and like especially when you're playing higher level players, they're like me, Jack, and Ben, and stuff like people at that level, Scary. Like we all know. Obviously, you're not intending to touch the terrain unless you have to. Now,
Yep.
if you make a certain charge and like you have to be on the terrain because you can't fall off it, yeah, obviously you're on the terrain. But if you're just moving and like you can stay off the terrain, most of the time like higher level players are gonna be like, hey, you just move off the terrain a little bit. If they see it, like I'll tell my opponents like, hey, move your back a little bit to stay off the terrain. And like, but the main thing is like to stay focused is you have to always keep your head in the game. You have to be. I'm very good at being just like very attention to detail oriented. So I'm able to see just like, oh, I need to be back a little bit or something like that. So I will try and like make sure that my models are outside line of sight. Try, but you have to. It's a conscious effort. It is a conscious effort for us to maintain that. But the easiest way to do that and not get got is to set the standard early, where it's just like, hey, I'm obviously gonna if I'm trying to do something, it's obvious I'm trying to do something. Like if you move a model to like heal something, but you just forget to like heal it immediately, it's like, oh, I meant to heal this. It's setting the game up together with your opponent. Just decides how you want to play the game.
Yeah, that's a big deal, right? Because it's a two-player game, right? Like we are playing the game together, and I do the exact same things in my games where I'm like, hey, listen, so I'm gonna advance behind this ruin. I'm gonna be completely hidden from all line of sight angles. Uh, I'm gonna hold my laser. I'm gonna show you where I am. Am I missing anything? Do you see any angle there? And dude, your opponent's gonna answer. He's gonna be like, yeah, no, actually, I could get you from this angle right here. It's like, oh, okay, cool. Then you got to rotate that spear. And when you say that, if one guy accidentally gets bumped and now he's touching terrain, no opponent's going to be a dickhead and be like, well, he's touching the train now. It's like, no, I mean, we had a clear conversation about it, right? And if he is like that, you're never going to play with that person again anyway. So it is what it is,
Yep.
right? Um, jeez, people like that, awful. All right.
Yeah, fortunately, I dodged most of those people.
I love that. And oh, and sorry, one other thing, and this is actually just advice that I tend to give basically every single like coaching client I have, which makes me think that this is probably pretty decent advice. When you are going through it and you're playing a game, what I recommend everyone do is identify what has to happen this turn, and then identify what has to happen to set you up for next turn. When you identify those two things, every time you move any model, literally just ask yourself, how is that helping you achieve one of your two goals? And if it's not, stop doing that and go do something else until you've accomplished everything that you need to for your turn to set yourself up to accomplish those goals. And then you can go back and like waffle around the other things. But if you in order to set yourself up for next turn, you have to make sure that you screen your opponent's deep strike. You're gonna make sure that you screen the opponent's deep strike, and you're not gonna mess that up, right? So just accomplish those two, just identify those two goals, and you're gonna be freaking fine. Hey, we got Scary in the chat. Hey, Scary, what's up, man?
Give me one more second. There's
Oh yeah,
one more
absolutely.
important thing you need to do at every tournament. Drink lots of water.
So true, man.
Drink lots of water and sit down when you can.
Dude, sitting down is so hard to remember.
It is. But like if you know your opponent's not doing something important, if you know like you don't have to watch your opponent's every movement, take a deep breath, sit down, rest your legs, you save some energy.
That is freaking brilliant. All right, man. I got a few rapid fires. Let's do it.
Bang bang.
What's the best way to practice effectively before a tournament?
The best way to do it is to make sure that you play at your opponent's best. Like if you know your opponent's doing some mistakes or you know they're forgetting something and you're doing a practice game, remind them and give them advice.
Yep.
Because you always have to play as if your opponent is playing at their best to help you improve yourself. Even if you mean you lose your practice game because like you help your opponent out, you need to learn like what your opponents can do, and you need to make sure that you are, because your opponent at the tournament is going to be playing at their best, and maybe they're going to be even better than the person you're playing against, who's not going to make those mistakes. So if like your opponent forgets like feeling pain, something like that, I always remind them. Even in a regular game, even in like a tournament game, I'm reminding you about feeling pains because that's something that you get. And it's just like I don't want to be like, oh, I got feeling pains like in 2 minutes and be like, can we go back there? I'm gonna remind you in the moment. But the main thing in practice games is you need to play your opponent at their best because you need to be preparing for your opponent at the tournament at their best.
Dude, I love that. That was freaking awesome. Here's how I recommend you guys do, because a lot of you guys who are watching this, you're probably one of the better players at your local meta in your local club. If you're playing one of the newer guys, try to get them to beat you. That doesn't mean give them the game away. You should still try to win. But if you see them making a mistake or something, stop them. And effectively play yourself. Coach them
Yes,
into playing yourself. That's the way you're going to get better, even when you're playing against opponents who are less skilled than you. All right.
absolutely.
Rapid fire number 2. What's one thing that well, you kind of already answered this one. Every player needs to focus on screening better because people suck at screening. You've answered that one. Did that one? No, honestly, I think we basically hit everything I had. So let's do this. Guys. We're gonna move into open Q&A. So I'm just gonna go ahead and scroll through the chat here. I'm gonna grab a few of the questions that have been asked. If I miss your question when they light up in bright lights on the screen, it makes it easier for me to see them. So
Are they flashing like casinos? Because that's I was just there.
little casino flashes. Those are definitely things. Oh man. All right. What was and were the MVPs of your list?
It varied game to game. Some games it would be the Dominator Kill Team, sometimes it would be my Terminators, sometimes it was my Watchmaster Squad. It really varied game to game. Like every unit has their place, every unit has their things that they do, but like it's all about how you optimize them. I didn't have like a single MVP because like everything like in some games one unit would just hop off, go like ham, but in other games other units would do really good. Everything has it's all a puzzle and it all works together, but like what a hell of a puzzle.
Right on. This is from Starn Zero. How much research of the other codexes do you have to do? He always feels super surprised by factions that he's never really faced before, even when people give him rundowns.
You should have a basic understanding of what the units do. Even if you don't know what the stratagems are for everything, you should have a general idea of at least like this. They generally move 6 inches. Like Eldar generally move like 7 inches. They're usually pretty weak. Like the ones that aren't bigger, they typically C3. You just have a general idea of like the profiles of your opponent's army. At least the profiles. You should know. It is hard to do when they're not indexes because you can't look at everything. But mainly, what it comes down to is just like practicing against as many armies as possible, playing on TTS when you can, getting like random games in, because like then you can learn what your opponent's armies do. Hopefully, they're not getting the rules wrong, because sometimes they do. But like, if something seems too good to be true, just ask them, "Hey, can I just read that?" Because
Mhm.
sometimes they're just reading it wrong. Sometimes they're just mistaken.
Right on. This one's from Chris S, who is a member. Bro, thank you so much for your support. Really appreciate you. Versus a shooting army, if you're getting outgunned and outranged, how do you approach the matchup? Like, let's say we're playing against Star Shatter.
It's about hiding and getting in better positioning. So basically, oftentimes what I do is like I'll give out a unit that forces them to come out, and then I'll like Star Shatter is a weird one because like there's many ways to play against Star Shatter, but the main way to play against Star Shatter is to hide from them, get into good angles, and then this with my death watch, just the way I do it is like I'll give them like a unit they have to pop out to shoot, and then I'm able to like hit them back with a lot more stuff. Now before nerfs, it was very easy for them to hide from like because they could just react and move
Yeah.
something. The way to beat Star Shatter is like force them to only be able to react and move somewhere. You have multiple targets you can shoot.
Yeah, this is one that I'm pretty curious how you approach as well. So when you run into an army like a guard tank line,
Mhm.
that just lines up and says, "Avast, have at ye, matey." You don't, you as Deathwatch don't necessarily have the long range firepower to deal with that, to break through.
No.
What do you do?
So what you do is you hide as best you can. This is my fifth round. This is basically my fifth round opponent.
Mm-hmm.
He was running like Ultraman's Gladius with like two Vindicators, two Predator, like two or three Predator Destructors, the anti-infantry one, and like he was basically gunline Ultraman stuff. But I was able to beat him because I was able to hide, come out when I needed to come out, deny him primary. Because like I've got good melee and shooting, and I'm able to like tilt around the board. So they've got to like watch out. But like it's about giving about the giving out not too many key pieces, but to force them on the backfield.
Mm-hmm.
So what I was able to do in that game is I was able to deny him enough points where I was able to just be like, all right, cool, you're gonna almost table me, but you can't catch up on points.
Dude, and that
It can be hard to do against the gun line, but it's all about like maximizing like the angles and taking out the pieces you can take out and being like, all right, cool. I killed two tanks when I engaged you. I've only got two tanks left. All right, have at you. You'll kill some stuff, but I'm gonna kill more back on my next turn.
So I actually think that's a really, really, really important point that you just made. This game is scored on victory points. It's not scored on how many units you have on the table at the end of the game. One of the things I always like to say, especially when I'm playing orcs, and if you play orcs, you will learn this lesson, guys. Just be with me here for a second. You will lose your models. When I play a game, I know I'm going to lose my models. I don't care. As a matter of fact, I'm totally fine losing my models so long as I lose them on my terms. So one of the things that Mark really just says, sometimes you might have to expose something, and thing is, you got to understand it's probably going to die, but now it's going to die on your terms. Are you exposing it, and in exposing it, you're forcing them to expose themselves? Are you forcing them to walk onto an objective that's going to give you an overwhelming force next turn or a slingshot next turn? When you're sacrificing a unit, it's not just losing a unit, it's actually doing it for a reason. So I think that was just a very great answer, very profound answer. Um, Ryan Nelson with the $10 super chat. What's up, Ryan, man? Thanks so much for that. Appreciate that. He's also a member. Bro, the support is greatly appreciated. Love you. He wants to know, can we see the Gator hat? Can we do it?
Oh man, yes you can. Give me 1 second.
He's doing it. He's freaking doing it, bro. Let me just go ahead and read the Aaron the Wanderer. Before Team Battle Brothers, Mark played a practice game with me and did just what he said. Oh, sorry, my screen crashed for a second. And did just what he said, helped him with the deployment, etc. First GT of 10th for me after a 4-year hiatus, and walked away top Space Marine player, 4 out of 2. Dude, that's awesome. I love that fact that these guys are actually genuine.
I am a generous god.
That is ludicrous. What is the tale of this freaking hat, my friend?
Oh, this has a few tales. After that, let's thank my buddy JC for funding this to start. Basically, JC Watts, he runs the Battle for Alzheimer's. It's a great charity event. He was recognized as a Warhammer hero by GW, and he was also recognized by LVO earlier this year, at LVO this year. But he got me this hat off Amazon, and it is a great Gator hat for me. I wore this at ATC. I'm playing games very seriously on Joe's stream, and there's me wearing a Gator hat, tabling opponents.
Dude, I freaking love that. Matt
I also
S.
wore this at LVO after I won. So
You freaking legend. Matt S. with the $5 super chat. Thanks for answering the dumb questions. They were not dumb, my friend. Thank you for asking the questions. I love the high level info, but you never get a chance to ask Jordan how to shoot a free throw. Take the shot. Ooh, spicy.
practice.
Now, Mark, what are you gonna do with the fantastic $100,000 prize that you won from LVO? I've got it, because now that all the riches and the glory. What's next for?
Hey, Bills.
What is next for Mark?
Well, what's next is I've got my Team Battle Brothers 5-man teams tournament in February. I've got a couple local tournaments in Virginia. I think the next big tournament I've got is the Richmond Open.
All right on, man. Guys, this was awesome. I think we are all out of questions here. And Mark, this is great. Thanks so much for coming on and just sharing your wisdom and your experience and your glorious, lovely hat with us. It's mostly the hat. I gotta be honest. That's
mostly the hat. I mean, that's where I draw my power from.
Dude, I get it. Do you have any closing remarks? Do you have any social media or anything that you want to pitch? Like, what do you got?
None yet. Look forward to some maybe coming soon.
Ooh, is it in Only Gators?
No, that would be a good idea though.
I legit was considering opening up an Only Orcs, and I was just gonna I don't know, put clay figures on the screen or something. But
well, here let me put this in chat. What did you think about this as a channel name? MinMax Gaming.
MinMax Gaming. Ooh.
Minimize your stress, maximize your success.
Guys, if you like MinMax Gaming, give us a freaking thumbs up. Matt S says, no social. What a freaking legend. And he is legendary. Guys, with that, I think we're probably going to end up closing it. Matt, thanks so much for your time, man. You rock.
Thank you.
Oh.
Thank you too, Matt.
We are going to close out here, guys. Thanks, everyone, for your attention. If you want more information, if you want to talk more about the strategies that Matt here said, you can either connect with him. You can reach out to him, find out. Team Battle Brothers, they do great work. You can hit me up in the Discord, the Happy Crumpet Discord. You can find links to that down below. You can join it, become a member, either as a YouTube member or a Ko-Fi member down below. You can join our members-only TTS leagues and all the stuff that we do in the members Discord. Currently, we are in a teams tournament against Scary and the denizens of Scarredcast. So we're gonna have to crush their souls, but it's gonna be an absolute blast. So everyone, we're gonna sign off here. Thanks so much for your attention, and with that, crap on.